friends. I recognise loads of people in this room. It's fantastic. I just want to say thank you all for coming to this rally today, as everyone else has said. But I know why you're here. You're here because there is genuinely a mounting sense of anger and a massive sense of injustice about what this government, and for those of us in this room, what this Secretary of State in particular is doing. So I just want to talk a little bit about how it could be different. There's a chap called Pasi Salberg. He was the last Chief Inspector of Education in Finland. The reason he was the last one was because he'd only been in office about 2 weeks and they abolished his job. Because they don't have school inspection in Finland. They know that you need qualified teachers. And they know that if you trust teachers and you fund schools properly and you give them the responsibility to develop the curriculum, you actually get a good education system, and that's why they consistently come top of the league tables. But what he says is there is something called the Global Education Reform Movement. Just let those initials sink in. GERM. It's something small and nasty that's creeping into all the systems, but it's characterised by exactly the same things that we're facing. Tests, targets, league tables, rote learning, mechanistic accountability. Now, how different that is from what Matt Damon, my new favourite education Go back and watch him on YouTube, speaking in Washington if you haven't seen him. But this is what he said about his own education. And I think this chimes with what the parents said, with what our young person said, with what Emma said, with what the governor said. He said about his own education, teachers were free to approach every child as the individual puzzle that they are. And isn't that exactly what we think? It's not about saying everyone can be pushed into the same mould. So we're here today because we are concerned. We're absolutely passionate about education, and we know that a good education provides the greatest likelihood of a life characterised by self-confidence and success. And we all want the very best for our own children, but actually all of us in here want the very best education system and service for all children, all young children and all young people. And I think we know what it looks like. We're here because we believe that the government should be doing better for and by children and for and by teachers and of course the whole of our communities. They should be protecting teachers and defending education. And we want a public education system in which all schools are good schools and which coexist and collaborate. That's what school improvement springs from, working together, not from the Michael Wilshaw hideous pressure on schools under the tyrannical Ofsted regime. And you've already heard this, we are not, as Michael Gove would have it, the enemies of promise. It's not teachers who robbed students of their GCSE grades last year, or who imposed synthetic phonics and a check which make many believe that 5-year-olds will feel like failures when they've barely started on formal education. It's not teachers who are seeking to impose a curriculum which the profession finds unacceptable and which will of course not be compulsory in academies and free schools, and we're not the ones who believe that it doesn't matter who is a teacher. We are the people who believe that you need qualified teachers, and neither do we distort the truth for our own ends. Michael Gove, speaking recently, said, "Survey after survey has shown that children have no historical knowledge." Now, an assiduous person who is interested in corresponding with the DFE wrote to the DFE and said, Michael Gove recently said, "Survey after survey have said that children don't have any historical knowledge. Could you tell me what these surveys are, please?" This resulted in an email going around the DFE that said surveys, and I just point out to you, those of you who know about the SPAG test, the grammar test, that it was written SURVEY apostrophe S. Michael Gove didn't write that, but someone in his department did. Anyway, it turns out, survey after survey, well, it turns out one of them was run by Premier Inn, obviously a polling organisation of great repute. One of them was actually about maritime history exclusively. But the one he was quoting was actually run by UK Gold. Now, when we do surveys in the National Union of Teachers, and we are going to say, and the same is true in the NSW, we are going to say this is a survey that has relevance and it's properly done. We use YouGov. We don't use Premier Inn and UK Gov. And if you want to read the whole article, look on the local schools website, because it's really a good website. But next time you hear Michael Gove say something, write to the DFE and say, can you tell me what that's based on? Like his speech at the Brighton College last week, where he said there were all these schools all over the country using Mr. Men to teach history. Well, actually, even the Daily Mail discovered that piece of material does exist using Mr. Men to teach history. It was something that was written for the IGCE. So the chances are it's not actually in use in very many of our schools. But of course, it didn't prevent Michael Gove making it seem as though all of us are dumbing down history by using Mr. Happy and Mr. Grumpy. Anyway, what we also know, though, and that arises from what I'm saying here, that persistent criticism and name-calling and undermining of teachers and young people is counterproductive. This Secretary of State has lost the confidence of the teaching profession. But research we've done with YouGov, I might say, shows that he's also lost the confidence of parents. A recent survey that we carried out just before a NUT conference showed that only 6% of parents thought that Mr. Gove's policy had a positive effect on education. And frankly, I'd like to meet all those 6%. I'd really like to know what they think is happening. And then, of course, there's all, we know that all of these policies are about a direction of travel of this government. It's about privatisation, it's about driving down costs, it's about undermining the public sector ethos, which all of us in this hall prize so highly. And it's about holding down public sector pay, attacking benefits, and indeed those who receive them. And I'm sure that all of us who are teachers have in our classrooms or in our schools children who are desperately worried because they think they might lose the roof over their head because their parents can't afford to pay the pension. And then, of course, at the DFE, there's also the profligate spending. Now, this links with what Sheila said about being a governor. This is profligate spending, spending billions of pounds on this vanity project of academies and free schools. But now they're out of control, because actually one person, even Michael Gove, one person at the DFE clearly can't be the way that all of these schools are organised. So they've had to set up what's called a middle tier in the DFE. Now, I think a lot of us thought that that was what the local authority was. And instead of opening up academies and free schools, he should be just putting schools back to their local authority, where they are actually democratically and locally accountable. Person to say it, austerity is clearly not working. Even large numbers of economists agree about this. Across the trade union movement, which is, of course, the movement primarily concerned with social justice, we need to make common cause with all local campaigns, with parents, with governors, with young people who genuinely believe that there is an alternative. We can get the economy moving, but it requires the government to do something different from what it's doing. If we actually had a wage increase for those who are likely to spend the money on DIY, maybe even on a holiday, in some cases, on actually being able to buy enough food for their families, that would get the economy going, rather than obscenely high bankers' bonuses or pay for the highest paid, who frankly are not going to do anything with that money except pile more of it into their offshore accounts on which they're probably not paying any tax at all. Jobs for young people, both those who go to university but those who choose to go from school directly into the labour market. And we need an education service in which every child finds a proper place and can genuinely do their very best to fulfil all their potential. And in order to do this, we need more teachers. We need properly trained teachers. We need them to be motivated to stay in the classroom, not vilified and berated as the enemies have promised. And we need teachers who can develop a curriculum appropriate to the needs and interests of all the young people for whom they're responsible. And we need teachers who will stay in the profession because they can earn fair pay on a fair basis, not this divisive basis envisaged by this government. Because I tell you, nowhere in the world is there any evidence that relating teacher pay to student outcomes does anything to improve what students achieve. Actually, we said that to Patricia Hodgson, who is the chair of the School Teachers Review Body, and she said they did look for evidence of that. They didn't find any, but they thought it would be a good idea to do it anyway. So there you go. Evidence, absolute lack of evidence. Teachers do deserve decent pay. And we put the demand to the Secretary of State that he halts the move to deregulate pay and conditions. And actually, large numbers of parents, well over half, well over 60%, said that they supported the idea of a national pay system because they can see, parents can see, as we can see, that that's the way it's possible for teachers to move around the system, which is to some extent desirable. And on pensions, we're requiring that the valuation of the teachers' pension scheme be carried out and published. As I approach it at a rate of knots, 68 begins to look, not as old as it did, but absolutely. Can you really imagine teaching an infant class when you're 68? Teachers cannot work till they're 68. It's just not acceptable. So here, in Yorkshire, and adjacent in Humberside, members of the National Union of Teachers and the NASUWT will take strike action next term. Unless Michael Gove changes his mind and accedes to our request. Well, they're perfectly reasonable. But we will take strike action as part of our rolling programme, not because we want to, but because, frankly, everything else we've tried hasn't changed Michael Gove's mind or his policy. So, colleagues and friends, you've heard the real experience of schools up here today. The passion in this room has buoyed us all up. Together, teachers from the NASUWT and the NUT, alongside all of you, parents, governors, teachers, young people, community organisers, community activists. We will campaign together in our unions, we will strike together when we need to, and together we will win. Thank you.